Welcome to the Smoke and Rope Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Basore, and today is episode 35. And I'm excited to have on good friend and the man with many titles, Nick Zetell. Nick, thanks for being on the show.
To be on the smoking rope fun.
Nice, nice. Yeah, long overdue. Long overdue. With me today, Kevin over at True Cannabis, back from a hiatus last week. Kevin, how's it going? Oh, Kevin's having some technical difficulties. We're going to move on over to our good buddy Tom Beller over at Real Leaf Solutions. Tom, what's happening up in Kalkaska?
Oh, what's happening? Oh, it's a beautiful day on the farm, man. We got some old favorites back in rotation, and everyone's pretty pumped with the flower that's been coming out. So, yeah, it's awesome, man. Loving it.
I've been hearing some pretty great things about the donkey butter, and I know that's just going out. So I actually got to test it with our friend that was up there and bought it at the store. So it was awesome. Forgot to tell you that.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, cool. Keep coming up with new stuff. It's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Exciting. So I want to give Nick a little longer introduction, like always. I first met Nick in 2015, late in the year, and I just got out of prison and started working with MILegalize, kind of undercover, and Nick was big time involved with MILegalize, and I had known about him. He's a board member, pretty young guy back at that point. That was a while ago. Shoot, that's like 6 years ago. And Nick had cut his teeth. He's University of Michigan graduate now, but with Students for Sensible Drug Policy, super involved with that, and a big advocate, and then always. Also with Hash Bash along with that as a student, and then since then, and that's what we're going to talk a bit about today is the 50th anniversary, the virtual part of Hash Bash Nick's helping with, and then also Decriminalizing Nature and things of that. But Nick's been in the movement at an early time and an early age, and has always done it. I was always kind of the young guy that spoke really well and was well put together, and it was pretty impressive. So I remember. Thinking that about you, Nick, and now you've been in the industry some. You're deciding what you want to do. You're still advocating and just generally enjoying life. So, looking forward to hearing about Hash Bash, Decrim Nature. Nick's also a guy I like to share funny texts with. Always in communication at least once a month. We won't get into that though. And with that, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone just a couple minutes about your background and life in Muskegon growing up, and then get into Hash Bash and
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. So as Ryan mentioned, I got involved when I was a student, University of Michigan, through a group, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. If there are any young people listening, it's a really great group, just a way for young folks to meet other young folks interested in ending the war on drugs. So that was really, really integral for me getting involved with both Hash Bash and eventually MILegalize. And it's funny, before I knew Ryan in person, I knew the name, and it took a while until I actually had met him to realize that we'd attended some rallies, in his name, and when he was part of the Okemos 7 back in 2010. And so it was, I was a part of things I didn't even quite realize. And there was always a student who needed to reserve the diag for the University of Michigan to put on the Hash Bash, and I was that student one year, and it kind of carried on through the next few years, and I worked with a bunch of local activists and advocates to make Hash Bash what it is today, and we'll get into that a little bit. So sometime shortly after school, Matt Abel and Tom Levine at the Cannabis Council law firm, with Chuck Ream, and really at the behest of Jeff Hank, sort of his brainchild with Chuck Ream, to put the MILegalize board together. We had a big brunch, talked about what needed to be done in Michigan. Some really important bills had just failed to pass lame duck, and we decided that we couldn't rely on our legislature, and we needed to take to the streets, take to the petition board, and get legalization passed on our own. So we started that in 2015, and worked all the way through November 2018 until we got the job done. And after that, I worked at the Home of Medicine in Ann Arbor as a manager. Still like to stay involved and advocate for what I think is right in the industry and ending the war on drugs in a greater sense.
Awesome, Nick. I forgot about working with Matt Abel too, and then obviously the home you've got to get the. And actually, we even one of the cool things too. We even it's not easy to do. So congrats, we actually pulled off a consulting property deal together. So that was quite an experience as well. That was in the. Why don't you? I know Real Leaf and Redemption, and then True Cannabis Through Redemption. We're all sponsoring Hash Bash and the virtual. Why don't you tell us what's going on with that? Who's involved? Who are the speakers? I've been on a couple of my only clubhouse calls have been on Hash Bash with Mark Pastorini, so I know a little bit what's going on. So why don't you tell us about that, please?
Same. Those have been my only clubhouse calls as well. And I'm really excited for this year's Hash Bash. So Hash Bash started in 1972. It was a rally. It was really a big smoke in a lot of the young people, the White Panthers, the Rainbow in Ann Arbor. They staged a sort of protest on April 1st as a result of some new marijuana laws, new drug laws that were going into effect in Michigan, because the earlier drug laws or the marijuana laws had been ruled unconstitutional. So there was this beautiful little 3-week period in Michigan where cannabis was essentially not necessarily legal for sale or anything, but it wasn't illegal. The laws were stricken from the book. So I think that happened in a few other states as well, but Michigan was actually one of the first states in that regard to decriminalize cannabis. So John Sinclair played a really big role in that. He was sort of the cause of the day in a big way for getting sentenced to 9.5 to 10 years for giving away 2 joints. What today is just a really simple gesture and a really nice thing to do. He gave 2 joints to some undercover cops, and I think it might have been his 3rd strike or so. And so they wanted to lock him away, put away the key, and really make an example of him. So there was a big concert at Chrysler Arena where U of M basketball team plays. They had John Lennon and Yoko Ono at their first U.S. appearance since the Beatles broke up, I believe. Stevie Wonder isn't listed, but he made a guest appearance. Commander Cody, and then also, some Black Panthers like Bobby Seale, and just a really some notable hippie activists and yippies like Abby Hoffman and Allen Ginsberg, the poet. So many people came and spoke out about that injustice, and that was in December of 71. And so shortly thereafter, in 72, John Sinclair was let out of jail, and they wanted to, when those laws were going back into effect, they wanted to kind of stick it to the man, say fuck you to the police, and just had a big turnout on the U of M Diag. And it continued for years after that on April 1st. And then Adam Brook and some folks really revived it and made it what it was with High Times in the 90s, and made it this big blowout day. Charlie Strackbine in the 2000s brought the Monroe Street Fair to it to give it a more commercial, to give the commercial entities a place to set up with booths, a place to safely medicate that's off campus, because campus is a part of the state. So Ann Arbor decriminalized marijuana, but the campus, it was still illegal for a long time. So that's sort of the history in a big nutshell. But this year, we're equal parts dismayed that we're not having the official 50th Hash Bash in person, and equal parts, excited to try some new things with this new format. Everything in the last year has gone to a digital format. Hash Bash last year was right at the very start, the very onset of the pandemic. So Jamie Lowell and Michael Camorn and some people really got together to transfer what we had planned to the digital format, and it worked really well. We still were able to get a lot of great speakers that we had on the lineup. Some bigger names like Tommy Chong and Congressperson Debbie Dingell, and then we had so many from the Michigan community, like Tim Back and Matt Abel, and just so many people that were able to hop on the Witties and say something. So it was really important for the community. This year, we're really excited because we're trying something new. And one thing I wanted to avoid a little bit was the multi-paneled Zoom aesthetic that everyone has been just. So many people have had to, hunker down in front of their computer for such extended periods of time on these Zoom calls. So I wanted to, make it more of a variety show. I think, Seth has done a great job of adjusting to the pandemic, and different award shows, they make it still lively. It's hard to even sit down and watch, a full concert or a full speech. So we're trying to break things up, and we've got a really stellar speakers lineup. We do have some state and local politicians, such as the ever popular state senator Jeff Irwin out of Ann Arbor. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and Attorney General Dana Nessel will be making a return appearance. Earl Blumenauer is a U.S. congressman out of Oregon as well, and he's been a longtime champion of cannabis reform. He'll be there. But we also have some great athletes from Michigan, from Detroit Lion, Calvin Johnson, who's been really involved in the industry in Michigan for a while, to Darren McCarty, who likewise has his own brands going on right now. And, that's really exciting. In addition, we wanted to make sure that we're not just staggering speech after speech after speech. We're going to be breaking this up with a few interviews done by Rick Thompson, and we're going to have some performances by Cosmic Knot and Laeth Al-Sadi and Laganja Estranja, and it's all going to be emceed by Anquinette Jameson Sarfo, and she's just been an incredible advocate for the industry and for legalization. If you're not familiar with her story, she can definitely tell it better than I can. So look up some clips of her.
We've had Q on the show twice, so
nice, yeah. And she's just got a great story to tell, and came on board with MILegalize, I think in 2018, maybe before that.
yeah.
And
That Weber's End meeting was when I first met her, right after we decided to go again. It was cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that would have been 2017.
Yep.
It all blends together a little bit.
And that's
yeah.
how
so she was a Fox 2 News anchor. She knows how to talk and knows how to introduce people and elicit the best responses out of people too. So it's going to be really fun and exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. We also got I know like all the sports covered, Joel Zumaya and Al Harrington. So
Yep, yeah, all the major sports. We just need like someone from the Michigan Curling League, and we'll have it all.
Oh man.
And then of course, so many notable local activists and organizations. The Michigan Cannabis Caucus of the Democratic Party, Decriminalizing Nature, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I mean, we wanted to make Hash Bash just a big forum for the community, by the community, one of those kind of like nothing for us without us type of a thing.
Super pumped to be a sponsor for Hash Bash this year, and really looking forward to seeing it move into the digital age and giving people an option that can't make it in the future when we can get together in person to still have that format might be really helpful. I wanted to ask you about Decriminalize Nature really quick. If people don't really know what that is, Decriminalize Nature, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking to legalize the possession and personal use of entheogenic plants, right? And
Yep.
and that means any cactus or mushroom or plant containing ibogaine or DMT. In Michigan, do they have
Yeah.
anything else added to that list?
Well, yeah, mushrooms and cactus, like the typical magic mushrooms, and San Pedro cactus, I think, is legal to have but not to propagate already, and peyote buttons. But then you mentioned ibogaine and DMT, and those are, they come from different roots and seeds, and they're popular in different parts of the world, but they also have, value if done properly and administered in the right setting. So we wanted to really put, this plant medicine kind of at the, back in the forefront of the conversation. It seems like it's popular enough that it could be attainable at the city council level. And sure enough, they were able to do that in Ann Arbor, and there are Decriminalize Nature chapters that are working on a handful of other cities. So, Julie Barron, Jim Salame, Michael File Williams, Colin McDougall. There's so many involved that are doing great work with that organization. I'm kind of, off on the side as a cheerleader. But yeah, I really appreciate the work they're doing, because those are it's important that, I think all drugs should be decriminalized. But I also believe in incrementalism personally. So I'm happy to see things move along one step at a time, if that's what it takes.
Well, and we need to start focusing on things as a social medical type, more than a criminal type situation, how we handle a lot of things in our society. I think we would benefit from that. And unlocking the powers of these plants is a huge step in that direction. It's the next frontier, really, for real freedom for the human race, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they've been traditionally important plants and medicines in a lot of different cultures. And I know that Decriminalize Nature, the members of that organization, they can speak to this from a better educated standpoint than I can. But they're facing a lot of the similar struggles that cannabis is, where they don't want to just legalize mushrooms for one company to sell mushrooms, and completely bastardize the industry and integrity of the medicine, and there's a certain amount of it that needs to be kind of certain amount of tradition and culture that really needs to be kept intact for it all to work, I think. But I'm really excited to see this progress made. I went to a Decriminalize Nature meeting in Ann Arbor, and it was sort of like a roundtable discussion, and we ran out of chairs. There were like 35 of us, and I was thinking back to 2010, going to similar cannabis meetings, and yeah, there might be 25 of us, but we were from all over the state. People drove from Traverse City to Grand Rapids or Lansing or whatever, just to gather and talk about some of these things. So I think that the people waving the flag for cannabis in a big way paved the way for this kind of progress to be made.
Have an open forum of discussion, just to get real about things finally, hopefully.
Yeah. Seriously.
That's what's really cool, as I'm seeing with mushrooms, and I love, like, I had a couple points to make, then I got a question, or your experience with it. But like, for me personally, I know, like, mushrooms, like, when I was in my 20s, there was a year I took mushrooms every weekend for the 1 year straight, and then I didn't take them again for 8 years. Like, so, but like, it helped me with issues I was having. Like, it's what I knew I needed, so I love it. And I just know a lot of people that I know now. I'm not, like, I just know of mushrooms being propagated in a lot of basements, and people using them, and a lot of micro dosing, and it's becoming popular in, you know, like Wall Street, you know, the microdose and all that. That's great and all, but like at least it's you know, that's catching on. So, but besides that, one thing I like to talk about is like politics, local initiatives. I had a conversation with a really brilliant Clark Hill attorney yesterday, and he was calling me asking about getting hands on some of the local initiatives as comparison because they're going to be doing one for another industry, and but like just like having that knowledge of government, like we did it out of necessity to change the laws, but like
Yeah.
just having that intimate knowledge of doing the high level work of figuring it out to also being on the ground collecting signatures, doing the PR. You know, we did all that stuff. You did a lot of that stuff and cut your teeth. Now, we got all these cannabis people that understand politics inside out, you know, which is cool and have relationships. But now that's passed on to you got all these people nationally and locally that know advocating for mushrooms and you know and the decrim and they know the system. We know the playbook. So you know, what has it been like for you? I know like politically, like that whole process. I find it fascinating now talking. I mean, you talk to a lot of politicians and just the knowledge level that we had to get to even be here.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you raise, and I guess it's a couple of great points because I know that because cannabis was illegal, it really forced a lot of the cannabis advocates and enthusiasts to be a little bit more politically savvy because it was out of necessity. We saw our friends going to jail and getting arrested, and so we knew, the names of like the Oakland County prosecutor, and that's not something most people are familiar with. You could ask most people in Michigan, who's your attorney general, and they maybe like one or two out of five would know, but you ask a cannabis person, and most people have known since 2010 because Bill Schuette was our enemy, and now Dana Nessel's our friend. So it's important for us to know these people because what they do affects us greatly. So that's a really great point that we had to kind of be present and be on our toes and keep a watchful eye on things. And also, we had to learn. We had to learn how to change the laws ourselves. We had to learn how to lobby and go talk to state reps. And then you realize like, oh, I'm just talking to Jeff Irwin or Yusuf Rabi or Stephanie Chang, and like they just want to hear what you have to say, but they might have a like somewhere to be. But that was always really important for us, I think, because it gave us that familiarity again with all the different people in different areas, and we learned how to petition. It's not the easiest, but it's not necessarily rocket science, and it takes just a lot of bureaucracy, filling out forms, crossing T's and dotting lowercase J's, and it was a process that we're very fortunate to have in Michigan and in a democratic system in the U.S. because it allows us to say, you know what, my legislators aren't listening to me. My attorney general is an absolute Nazi, Bill Schuette, and we need to do this ourselves. And we have enough people who believe in this, so you can write a law, collect signatures, and put it in front of the voter and let them decide. And it's incredibly important for us to have that knowledge because we carry it past legalization. We started in all of these cities, 16 or 17 cities in Michigan decriminalized marijuana or made it a low law enforcement priority. And then we all got together and worked our asses off to make it a statewide effort and passed that. And now we can, go back to doing it locally. And, like Sam Pernick just flipped a bunch of cities to allow dispensaries and cultivation. And, it creates jobs. And, some of these cities voted, 70% of them voted for legalization, but you still have a couple, just die-hard traditionalists, prohibitionists on the city council. And they just say, no, we can't have that in my backyard. And that's what everyone wants in their backyard. So, or the majority of the voters. So, it's turning a new leaf in a lot of big ways. A real leaf. So,
forgot. Sam. Anyone knows about it. We've all talked about it for years about the petitioning. We knew it was coming, but you got to execute. And shout out to Sam for executing. That's not easy at all.
Tenacious.
Yeah, yeah,
Seriously.
it's a good fundraiser too. So yeah, I wanted to ask you, Nick. I don't know much about it. I would have loved to have been in it when I was in college. But tell us a little bit about Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I've gotten the chance over like going to DC and lobbying and being in different groups to meet some of the heads of it and the people and yourself. It's been wonderful. So yeah, tell us about that, how you got started in that, and what it does, and what's going on today.
Yeah, so I really, I mean, I owe a lot to that organization, and it's funny you asked how I got involved, and I hadn't thought about this in years probably, but I was a freshman on campus, so I'm probably like walking around with a backpack. I had dreadlocks, I fit the bill at the time, but I saw like everywhere I went on campus, I would see these like chalk drawings on the ground that would say, something like 4 out of 5 Americans think the drug war failed. Do you agree? Come to this meeting. And there were some other, things like that. And, I was pretty vocal at the time, and when I was in high school, but, never in any, I'd never stood in front of a podium to tell people to legalize it. And I went to this meeting and met someone, from someone who I'm still really good friends with. And we met there, but we'd recognize each other from like bus stops or something. And yeah, they played this video, and I remember it very vividly. It had sort of who's who of cannabis advocates. Like I remember Howard Wooldridge, who is from Michigan, and he's a cop, and he was with Law Enforcement Action Partnership, is what they're called now. And he had a big shirt that said "Cops say legalize drugs, ask me why." And Ethan Nadelman, who founded the DPA, the Drug Policy Alliance. They were just talking about how bad the war on drugs has been and why it's a civil liberty, and that this is as like Tom said, this is either a medical or a social problem. It's not a criminal problem, unless they commit a real crime, in which case we have those laws already. So I thought the world of the people in my local chapter, and eventually got to go to a Midwestern conference and then a conference in DC. And I saw that, there was this network, of like-minded young folks across the country. And, we were sharing ideas. None of us had it right, but we all had different thoughts and, different ambitions. And the organization was founded, I got involved in 2009, but the organization was founded in, I think, 98 as a response to a really bad provision the Clinton administration had added to the Higher Education Act. It was that if you got a drug conviction, at the time, even one drug conviction, you'd lose all financial aid. So, I remember having friends who had to drop out of college because they got caught with a joint and, took a plea bargain. And so, that never sat well with me. And, to know that there was a whole organization birthed out of that was really incredible. And it provided me a lot. I'm still involved with the Alumni Association, and they just announced a new executive director. Betty Aldworth had done it for a long time, and she did a great job. Seriously tenacious human being. And then now it's Jason Ortiz, who is just also a really great thought leader, someone who, really kind of can keep, cannabis a hot button issue and talk about the delicate and sometimes sensitive things that people in the industry might not even want to hear. So I'm excited to see what they do in the coming years. So it was a really formative period in my life, and I'm still glad I have friends all over the country now from that I like to see when when I travel.
Yeah, speaking of that, where are you at now? I know I've talked to you a couple of times. You were in Oklahoma City in the ice storm and heading west. What's going on?
Yeah, it's true. I am in Seattle right now. So I moved here. I spent the last month kind of road tripping out here. I thought if I went south, that would be a good way to avoid the bad weather, and I ended up in Texas and Oklahoma during a freak snowstorm. So
That's awesome. Hey Nick, where can
yeah, it's been awesome.
yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you're out there doing what you want to do, and in this world right now, you're still able to be a part of Hash Bash and talk to us, and it's awesome.
Yeah, so and back to Hash Bash, I do want to mention that it will be streamed April 3rd. It's always the first Saturday of April, and it kicks off at high noon. And to view it, you'll be able to go to Twitch. It's going to be streamed on Twitch, and we're going to do it on a few other platforms, but it's going to be streamed from twitch.tv/A2hashbash. You can always find us on Instagram at Ann Arbor Hashbash or Twitter at A2hashbash. And yeah, it's going to be really exciting. We've got a great group of organizers this year with Jim Salame, who's also involved with Decrim Nature, Jamie Lowell, Rick Thompson, Jamie Goswick, and Ann Quinnett, and Mark Passerini, just people who volunteer their time to work really hard on this. And yeah, it should be pretty fun. Fun little production, and we'll be able to review it and rewatch it as after the event as well.
Yep. Well, that's awesome, man. I know we could talk all day on this, and also there's always going to be there'll be a this is virtual, but there will be a protest, I'm sure, on the Diag as well, and I might find my way down there, because open there and I'll be safe, but love both aspects of it. I think it all works together, and Michigan's got like such great history with all the activists, and man, I love it. So
seriously,
so with that, I wanted to give a chance before we sign off. Tom, you got any final thoughts or for the people, or Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to say prohibition doesn't work. It's never worked. Keep fighting the good fight, brother, and I'm looking forward to see you on April 3rd.
Right on, man, and thank you again, sponsor. Thank you to all of our sponsors. It's if anyone is interested, that's listening, wants to know how they can get involved in Hash Bash, present or future, get a hold of me. We really, we really rely on the community to support this fest and to put it on. It's put on just by regular folks who dedicate their time to it. So we're really excited this year and appreciative of all the support from True, Real Leaf, the Botanical Company, so on and so forth. There's a lot. So stay tuned and find out everybody that does support the event.
Man, thanks Nick. I was just kind of thinking, you made me think about this. This is episode 35, and like just all the history we talked about here, all the cool relationships that are in Michigan, and the history of activism, and so many other people that we haven't even had on the show yet that could tell, amazing stories like that. So I feel really fortunate, and that's kind of with the spirit of Hash Bash too. I mean, there's people going back that's going to be there from John Sinclair, Adam Brook, and the whole crew. Lace a part of Hash Bash. He was there doing it before. He became famous that whole day. So it's awesome. I'm excited. And then for anybody out there that's listening, I know down in Jackson in prison or some of the other spots, we got a lot of new stuff happening with the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, and we're working hard to help you guys out, and and then anyone else out there listening, go ahead and share this if you feel like it. Anyone wants to know about the history of Hash Bash and a little bit more about it. I learned some new stuff, as always, talking to Nick, and man, thanks for being on, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it.
Guys, thanks, Ryan.